Shalom to everybody from Jerusalem. And
can you hear me?
yes,
Can you hear me?
yes, I do.
I can barely hear you. Maybe it's on my end, not yours, but
I think everybody else does hear me.
I can barely hear you.
Amidror, can you say a few words?
Yes, I'm very well.
Amidror?
Yes. I hear you, Ephraim, very well.
So the problem is on your end, Greg.
Do you hear me, Ephraim?
Now I'm good.
Yeah, okay, good. So we'll start. It's my pleasure to introduce Major General Yaakov Amidror. He's currently Zan and Greg Senior Fellow, and Greg Grosshandler, Senior Fellow at the Jerusalem Institute for Strategy and Security. General Amidror was the National Security Advisor to Prime Minister Netanyahu and Chairman of the National Security Council. He served for 36 years in senior posts, IDF posts, primarily in the intelligence branch. He was also commander of the military colleges and the military secretary to the Minister of Defense, director of the Intelligence Analysis Division in Military Intelligence, and Chief Intelligence Officer of the Northern Command. He's also a distinguished fellow at the JISS Gemunder Center, and he's the author of 3 books on intelligence and military strategy. And today we'll hear a briefing on the recent operation in Gaza. Amidror.
Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity. If I may, I'll begin with background, which is very important to understand the event in Gaza. The beginning of the whole of all this event is 6 months ago. In March, we had very serious problems. 19 Israelis had been killed by terrorists from the West Bank. And the IDF began an operation towards the end of March. And since then, almost every night, the IDF is operating in area A and B, arresting suspicious, suspected terrorists on which we have an information. It's a combination of the IDF, the special forces of the police, and the Shabak, the domestic intelligence organization. Since March, more than 1,000 Palestinians have been arrested, interrogated by the Shabak. Some of them will go to court, some of them will be released, but it is ongoing operation. Every night, forces of the under the command of the IDF are going into Palestinian populated areas, arresting suspicious terrorists. 2 weeks ago, someone was arrested in Jenin. He had a high position in Islamic Jihad. Jenin is kind of forbidden area. I mean, the Palestinian Authority does not enter to those places around Jenin. And we understood that we have to do it, so we went there, and he had been arrested. He was very much insulted during the operation. He was bitten by a dog was involved in his capture, and there was a picture of him with a dog, something very insulting. He was grabbed on the ground because of the fire around, and that was looked like we are don't paying in any honor. It looks bad, but This is the West Bank, and it is ongoing operation, by the way. Today, tonight, we continue with it. Without any connection to all these events in the West Bank, there was a feeling, assessment based on intelligence that we collected that the Islamic Jihad in Gaza, which is the junior organization, versus Hamas, which is the junior one, is preparing something. And we knew that Hamas disliked it. Hamas didn't rehabilitate his capabilities since the operation 14 months ago. Since the operation, we are giving more and more people from Gaza to go outside Gaza to work inside Israel. So the economic situation is much better. So we understood that both elements, the fact that they are still recovering from the old operation and the fact that they have a lot to lose inside the Gaza Strip, made the Hamas in a situation in which they don't want another operation now. Hamas is an organization based on Muslim Brotherhood tradition, with responsibility to the population. They have huge civilian system under the organization, providing education, health, economy, health, and so on and so forth, like every Muslim Brotherhood organization around the Arab world. Unlike Hamas, Islamic Jihad is a gang. It's not an organization. They have only one obligation: to make as much terror as possible. That organization was established by Iran many years ago, financed by Iran. But at the end, the decision making is done by a group of two sitting outside Gaza Strip, moving between Lebanon and Syria. And the command and the commanders on the ground were two inside Gaza, one responsible for the north part and one responsible for the south part, both of them reporting to the guy who is sitting in Beirut, the jury. And the secretary of the organization, the head of the organization, Ziad Nahale, is moving, as I told you, between Beirut and Damascus. It happened to be that he was in Iran when the operation began, but this is it's important but not significant. I mean, it's happened to be, no one planned it. So the feeling was that they are preparing something, and after the rest of this guy in the West Bank, the intelligence was more accurate, and it was understood that they built at least four teams of anti-tank missiles, looking for targets on the area around the Gaza Strip. The range is 4-5 kilometers. They can go very close to the border and launch the missile from there. We had an experience with it. It's very deadly. They succeeded in the past to hit two buses, one civilian and one belongs to the army. And the first decision was to put some restrictions on the movings around the Gaza. In two settlements, it was a freeze. No one could enter and go out. In all the other communities, they could go in and out, but in a longer way than as usual, because they could not drive parallel. They could not drive parallel to the Gaza Strip. So that was the situation immediately after we understood that it is imminent. We try through the Egyptians to convince the Islamic Jihad to stop the process of preparing the operation. Hamas also was involved through the Egyptians to trying to convince the Islamic Jihad, but it was understood after 48 hours that it doesn't work, and they're continuing to prepare the operation. So the decision was to preempt the operation of the Islamic Jihad by initiating an operation by us. The demand was that at the first minute, at least one of the two commanders on the ground will be eliminated. The predecessor of the Northern commander was killed by us a year ago, I think. And here we wanted to do the same and to have enough information to thwart the anti-tank missiles teams. The decision was taken that and now we prepare the intelligence. It's a very delicate intelligence because you have to find the guy, to identify where is he, to be sure that he's not surrounded by civilians, at least too many of them. And at the end, he was identified in a building of 14 levels. He was in level 6. They used the technique of the Air Force. A bomb was went to the 7th floor and down to the 6th, and then other bombs to be sure that he will be killed. The minute that he was eliminated, other Air Force capabilities been used to neutralize the commander of the anti-tank branch in the Islamic Jihad, and ground forces, tanks and special forces hit points on the line in which we assume that part of the anti-tank teams are in, and to destroy the positions of the Islamic Jihad. That was in the first, I don't know, 60, 90 minutes, seconds. Then we continue to go on facilities of the organization, try to find other operators, and that was kind of process that we had an experience in. And after another 24 hours, we succeeded to kill the second commander, the one who was responsible for the south part of the Islamic Jihad organization. So the two top commanders in Gaza were killed, and some other medium level commanders as well, and some facilities. The Islamic Jihad succeeded to launch 1,170 rockets and missiles into Israel. 20% of all the missiles and the rocket landed inside the Gaza Strip. Half of the civilians, at least half of the civilians which had been killed, around 50, killed by those missiles, and the others probably by us. It's collateral damage. The number of Palestine terrorists which have been killed is around the same number. From the 1,170 rockets and missiles, the level of interception of Iron Dome, which brought to the area during the days in which we freeze the movement of civilians around Gaza Strip, the success was 96% from all the interceptions. You have to remember the Iron Dome does not intercept all the missiles and the rockets, only those that, according to all the calculation, will be landed in area that's supposed to be defended by the system. It's going between 70 to 50% of the missiles which been launched in different operations. But the success in this operation of interception was higher than in the past, thanks to some changes that we did in the technical models of the interceptor and the system and how we are handling it. And part of it is because the numbers are not so high. Remember that the war against Hezbollah, we will get every day probably twice the number that had been launched by the Islamic Jihad in the 3 days of the operation. So it is almost 10 times more than that. And the question is when and how quantitative efforts are becoming quality problem. When the numbers will be high enough to put our system in a problem. But in this operation, it was a great success. After 3 days, through the Egyptians, ceasefire was achieved. They didn't get any of their demand. They demanded for ceasefire, we will release 2 guys. One is in a strike, doesn't eat in the last, 150 days. His weight today is around 40 kilo. Member of the Islamic Jihad from the West Bank. The other one is the one which was arrested, and theoretically the excuse for the operation was his arrest. We didn't agree to release any of them. The Egyptians wrote in their declaration of the ceasefire that they will do the best to achieve it, but there is no promise because we refuse to give the promise. From our point of view, there were 2 targets to this operation, or 3. The first one and the most immediate one was to intercept the operation of the anti-tank missiles teams. So try to eliminate them, neutralize them. That was probably achieved. The second was to use the opportunity to decrease the capabilities of the Islamic Jihad by killing the 2 senior operators on the ground and some important facilities of the organization. We probably achieved that. It's not permanent, but it was achieved. And the third one, which is the most important one, is to make clear to Islamic Jihad and others, because Hamas looked at the operation and tried to learn the lessons. And in a way, it is a lesson for Hezbollah as well. And what we try to say in this operation kinetically is that we will not agree to get any dictate from terror organization by threatening us that if we do something or not do something, they will attack us. And we said to the Islamic Jihad, and it was understood by Hamas, we are ready to take the risk. And if we'll be in it, we will fight. And the results of the operation will be very problematic from your point of view, not from our point of view. Why it is so important? Because as you remember a few months ago, Hamas said, if you make the flag festival in Jerusalem, we will react by firing to Jerusalem from Gaza. At the end of the day, we said to the Hamas, we are continuing with the festival, and if you want to launch rockets, do it, and you will face another operation. And after what they felt in the operation 14 months ago, they didn't react to the fact that the flag festivals was materialized in Jerusalem as was planned. Here it's very clear. They connected the arrest or stopping the arrests in the West Bank to the operation. And as a result, is very clear. We didn't stop. We didn't release anyone. We probably will not release anyone. Maybe the guy who is in the last half a year. To recover, it will take him 3 years, so we can be out. And it's clear now, we have a red line. If you cross the red line, we are ready to fight. And this is very important regarding Hezbollah, because Nasrallah is threatening Israel that if we begin drilling in one of the gas fields in north part of the Israeli EEZ, he will attack. And it might happen that we will not have an agreement with Lebanon about the border line between us and Lebanon in the sea, because the mediator, Mr. Hochstein, is going between the two capitals. I don't know if will be an agreement, and if will not be an agreement, my recommendation will be to continue the drilling and not to stop it because the threat of Nasrallah. And this operation was very important to clarify to Nasrallah that if it is our interest, if it is our decision, these threats will not prevent us from doing it. So the operation was not just about Gaza, is what is not less about the position of Israel relating to our neighbors when they try to dictate us. So as a conclusion, this operation was a good one. No one in Israel, I think that the one wounded guy from shrapnels of one of the missiles. We have to learn the lessons. For sure, there are lessons for each level in the army. But it was probably a good operation, showing everyone that first, we have red lines and we are ready to defend those red lines. Second, that we know how to deal with Islamic Jihad inside very crowded Gaza, knowing that Hamas is another story. Hamas is 10 times stronger than Islamic Jihad, and Hezbollah is 10 times stronger than Hamas. So it was two factors, but at least it's clear that the Islamic Jihad suffered a big blow. And it is clear that those red lines are not regarding, it's not only regarding the situation in Gaza, but also in the relating vis-a-vis Hamas and Hezbollah. And last but not least, it's very clear that Hamas stayed out of the operation. They didn't react, although they saw what we are doing in Gaza to the Islamic Jihad and some areas, some buildings which had been destroyed during the operation. And Hamas kept his people out of the operation. And this is saying something about the bad relations between the two organizations from their point of view and the deterrence that we gained from our point of view. But we know that deterrence in this world is not something that you can count on in the future, and you have to work all the time to build it. But still, in this occasion, it is clear that the Hamas was deterred by his understanding what might be the reaction of the IDF and his interest to keep the Gaza Strip flourishing and not to let Islamic Jihad to destroy it. So this is the situation of today. Very important briefing inside the IDF. All the lessons will be learned and we will be better prepared, I hope, for the next round. If you have any question, I'm more than happy to answer.
Greg, go ahead.
Yes,
Unmute yourself.
I think I did. Yes. Thank you very much for that question. Does the preemptory nature of this operation suggest a change in Israeli strategy from the past?
No, we did almost the same, with the same organization, killing the Northern Command of the Islamic Jihad almost a year ago as a standalone operation. Hamas didn't intervene, exactly cut and paste of the previous organization, but in this one, we succeeded to kill both of them, not only one. That is the big difference between the two. And here we had a specific teams that we wanted to eliminate because we knew that they are preparing something immediate. But the idea of preempting was done in the operation a few months ago.
But will dealing with Hamas in the future and Hezbollah, should we expect to see this type of preemptory operation rather than waiting?
It's very much depends on the circumstances. From the pure military point of view, it's much better to surprise them. Can it be achieved? Big question mark. Is it good strategically and in the international community legitimacy side? I'm not sure. This is a very delicate question. Here it was very clear that we tried these 2 days to stop them. It was known to everyone, to the Americans, to the Egyptians, which made the work on the ground. But the Americans were involved all the time with all the details. So it was known, at least in Washington and Cairo, that Israel is not a happy trigger country. Then we try to prevent the whole event by convincing the capabilities that they built to launch the anti-tank missile.
First of all, thank you for this exceptionally well-organized presentation. It's just wonderful and clear and logical. How much of what you have said is known by the Hebrew readers of the Israeli press? We value this so much because it's in English language, but how much does the general population, from the Israel Hayom readers all the way to the Haaretz readers, how many of them have articles like this been written for the general Israeli public?
I think that there is if you take out Haaretz, which is always was for the government till 48 and against the government from 48. So Haaretz is something different. I think that if someone read all what was written about it, he will be a little bit confused because so much and everyone is adding and try to be smarter than his friends in the same newspaper or sure in another newspaper. I try to give you the essence of the situation without giving my views and remarks and marks and marking each one how good he was and what he should do and shouldn't do. That was the situation as I described. I think that to read all the Hebrew versions of the operation, if you don't have a lot of experience, you might be a little bit confused.
I have a second question, if I may.
Yeah,
go ahead.
You talked about the Hamas reaction, and you talked about the fact that the PA has a no-go zone for Jenin. What are the repercussions with relationships with the PA?
The relations with the PA are, if you look at the security side, there is a cooperation. We are informing them when it is needed. We do what we think is important to do. We don't take into account what they will do or will say, but I think that the relations regarding the security are pretty good. About what we tried to do in the last few months is Mr. Gantz is leading it is to enhance the economic situation of the authority. The problem is that the authority system is corrupted bottom up and in every corner of the system. And this is something that we cannot change. Every Palestinian knows it. So the reputation that they have is not so good, but security-wise, the cooperation is okay. Economically, we try to help them.
Thank you very much.
Other question?
Only, I have one more question, if nobody else does. Can you just, you described the upgrading of Iron Dome, but were there significant new military tools used in the offensive by Israel that, you know, that this was a proving ground for? Has something changed remarkably in Israel's tools for being able to pursue individuals or units?
I think that what was new, and that was a very important test, is the cooperation and the coordination between intelligence, air force, ground forces. For that, you need a unite command system which allows you to coordinate between all the forces. That was a very good test, very good conditions for a test. It's not so problematic as Lebanon, but the system works very well. But we have to be very careful and modest about numbers. It's a very minimal number. About strengths of the other side, there is no opposition to the Air Force. It's a different situation, but it was a good test.
Great. Unmute yourself.
Two things, if you could address Iron Beam and the new Iranian spy satellite.
I didn't hear the first one. The satellite is a problem. It was launched by the Russians. It will give the Iranians intelligence that they don't have today. We will have to make some arrangements inside Israel. It is more about infrastructure than real-time intelligence, because it is covering Israel every 48 hours. So it's not for a real-time operation. But it will give the Iranians much better understanding of infrastructure targets in Israel. It is something new. We will have to find a way what to do with it.
What about the Arrow 3? Is that able to deal with it, or is that unknown yet?
I don't know. We didn't make any test to hit a satellite, so I don't know the answer. Theoretically, it's possible, but I don't know that we made any test or preparations for it. I think that only the Chinese and the Americans had the capability of launching a missile against a satellite.
Herb, you want to ask her?
I'm just curious as to the cost of the Iron Dome. When you talk about 1,000 missiles that the Palestinians are sending, and then you eliminate those that are not going to do any damage, is there any actual cost that's been analyzed as to how much it costs to stop missiles that are really actively being used?
The system is very smart. We do not intercept missiles and rockets which are going to areas that are not defined as supposed to be defended. It is going 500 meters out of the line which was supposed to be defended, and no, it will not be intercepted. So all those which are going to open areas, you don't intercept. Those who are going to the sea and so on. The average number out of those which cross the line of the Gaza Strip. Remember, 20% launched inside the Gaza Strip. From the 80% which cross the line, from our experience, between third and half are going to into defended, supposed to be defended areas. So you have to use between 70 to 50% of the interceptors against missiles which cross the line into Israel. The cost of average interceptor is depends how you calculated it, but for easy calculation, it's $100,000. It's a little bit cheaper when you have big numbers. You understand that. So there is no free lunch. If you want to prevent any hit inside Israel and to finish such an operation without one Israeli killed and only one wounded, it costs money. I don't know about anything which can achieve that without paying a lot of money. In the future, when we will bring in the laser interceptor for the close range missiles and rocket, this is much cheaper because it's each time is only to electricity. The system is costing and the people doing it and so forth, but the interception itself is very cheap. But there are many limitations to laser. For example, you cannot use it during winter when the whole sky covered with the
clouds.
So many hours in which it cannot be used.
Thank you.
It will make the whole system. It will make the whole system, the operation of intercepting, cheaper. No question.
Hello, I have a question.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, can you please talk about how are they smuggling this weaponry and how can it be stopped? I assume they come through Egypt. Can you speak about that, please?
Yes,
Look into the camera.
The weapon in Gaza is either produced inside Gaza Strip. Machinery was brought in during many years, during which the Egyptians didn't make their job to stop it, and all smuggled in mainly years ago from outside the Gaza Strip. Today, most of the rockets and the missiles are in domestically in Gaza products. This is why 20% didn't cross the line and fall inside Gaza Strip. And it means that they have many problems to produce good weapon systems. Probably Hamas has a better organization, and this is why they have more missiles. And my assessment is that it will not lead 20%, which will not succeed to cross the line. But I think that today 90% is in-house.
That's incredible. Thank you.
By the way, when we know about such a center of which is part of the chain of producing these weapon systems, whenever we have an opportunity, we try to destroy it. And we succeeded in this operation to destroy at least 2 facilities which belong to the Islamic Jihad. And 2 months ago, we succeeded to take out one of the important facilities of Hamas using the excuse that something was launched into Israel. It was not clear, but we said Hamas is responsible, and we took the opportunity and we blow something which was very important for the production.
Mhm. What's the difference between?
Greg?
On a slightly different subject, is there a prospect for a conflict, a military conflict between Hamas and Islamic Jihad, the way there has been between Hamas and the PA?
No. They are too close, and Hamas is not ready to pay the price for such an event. I mean, if Hamas will be pushed by the Islamic Jihad and they will lose control and so on and so forth, it might happen, but it's very remote. It's possibility which is very remote, but it's still possibility.
Too bad. Okay.
You know, we are in area in which no one is doing your job. You have to do it by yourself.
Yeah.
Can you speak a little bit about what's if there will be any elections within the PLO? Is Abbas is going to stay there for forever? How do you see this?
Abbas is at the end of his term. Too old to make another elections. The question is how it will be controlled and by whom after he will pass away. There are some forces there. We try not to interfere. If it will be something that we don't want him because he's a terrorist, we will arrest him anyhow. But from all the others, we try not to interfere. We know our limitations to make the difference within the Palestinian society.
And I assume the Israeli Palestinians, they're signed up with, or they side more with Hamas or PLO or jihadists. I don't know, Islamic jihadists.
Or you can find inside the community in Israel people that will feel all the three. Will positive. There is an Islamic movement inside Israel, which is more like Hamas. Probably most of the Arab Israelis identify themselves with the Palestinian Authority. If there is anyone who is identified with the Islamic Jihad, he would be arrested immediately. Because this is a terror organization that we cannot allow it to go free inside Israel. It's not mine.
No, not yours.
If anyone has any other question, I'd be more than happy to answer. If not, I thank you very, very much. And Ephraim and me are coming in November to the state, and we're more than happy to meet.
Where are you going to be? Where are you going to be in the States?
Ephraim is the leader.
Will be probably New York, Miami, Chicago.
One more.
West Coast.
Los Angeles?
Yes, and on the West Coast, also probably we have somebody that wants us to come and to do an affair in Palo Alto.
Ah, good.
Yes.
Okay.
We are working hard, you know.
I know you are. I know you are. A lot of hard work to do.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank
If
you.
any additional questions to me or to that, please write to me and we'll of course respond. And thank you for joining us and Litraot.
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 Hope
This is
to
so
see you
long
in
in
New York,
Hebrew,
Marcus.
Mary.
Thank you. Great seeing you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Shalom,
Bye-bye, everybody.
shalom, shalom.
Bye.